All right, my friends, are you nearing 55 years old and maybe not feeling so good at your current job? Maybe you're just feeling like it's time to check out, but you don't know what to do. You've come to the right place today because, again, I bring on my friend Skip Ritchie, and we're going to talk about Social Security disability, long-term disability, and how it affects your retirement plan here today. I must have got, hundreds of questions on Social Security disability on my YouTube channel. And frankly, I just don't know. I don't have any expertise in that Social Security disability at all. And so for you of all who've commented or asked questions, I reached out to Skip because Skip specializes in that kind of disability claim as well as what we talked about before on the last video with auto insurance claims. But his primary specialty is Social Security disability and long-term disability. He's been doing it for a long time. I said, Skip, I don't know this. Help me. And he said, well, I'm going to be in Atlanta. I said, let's do videos because this is my addiction. It's a good addiction because we can educate you guys. So you've come to the right place if that is an issue for you, that you're just like, man, I'm around 50 odd years old and I don't know what to do. And I do not want to jeopardize my solid retirement plan that I've been working my whole life for. So don't forget, my friends, welcome to Heritage Wealth Planning YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe down below. And once you hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell to be notified for future content because Skip and I are going to be doing a lot of videos like this in the future. Skip's going to start his own YouTube channel going forward, and I'll probably have a lot of referrals to him for disability planning. So I'm going to kind of step out of the way and let Skip take it away here and just go over all his experience of Social Security and long-term care disability.
Thanks, Josh. I've been helping people who've been seriously ill and sick for a while, and got introduced to Social Security disability probably, 2004, 2005, and I have been doing Social Security claims ever since. And I think one of the things I get, and I'm glad I'm here with Josh, is I get individuals who are struggling with work. They have a lot of health issues and they're hanging on, trying to keep working, and they're missing work, but they're still able to stay out of trouble with work, but they know they're coming to the end of their ability to work full time, and they're really nervous that, are they going to have coverage for medical bills? Are they going to get their monthly check? How much are they going to get? They have all these questions as they're thinking about disability, but it really ties into retirement planning. And a lot of times my comment to them, and I'm glad Josh invited me, is the legal question in Social Security disability is, are you disabled from work? Do you expect to be disabled for at least 12 months, or have you been disabled for 12 months? It's not whether you can make it on $1,200 a month. That's the amount that the system in Social Security says you're going to get if you are disabled. That is a financial planning question. That's a retirement question. Can you make $1,200 a month work? And that number ranges from hundreds of dollars up to $2,000 some odd dollars is the cap, $2,800. So that's really a question for Josh. So my part would be, okay, let's get the disability and then talk to Josh about how we make that work so you going forward, you can actually pay your bills, stay afloat, not lose your house. So, for example, today we're going to talk about this idea that you're nearing 55, you're nervous that you're not going to make it much longer, you're obviously not going to make it to retirement at 62 and a half or 66, so you really are scratching your head saying, hey, to yourself, what do I do? And so the legal part for me, if you contacted me, would be to look at your health. And then the first question I ask people real quickly is, what is your treating doctor, the one who you trust, your PCP, he or she, does she or he think that this is it? You've tried all the medications, you've tried the treatment, the therapy, you've done all these different things, whatever condition you have, and nothing has really got you back to full health, and you're having episodes where you're calling in sick, and it's a situation where you have to miss time from work on a regular basis for appointments. That's when you really need to say, okay, now it's time to sit down with Josh to do financial planning to see what would I get if I was disabled, and talk to a lawyer about, okay, if I am going to apply for disability, what do I do? Well, first, the good news is you can apply online. 2, you can always go to the local Social Security office that's near your home and go and talk to someone anytime for free. So you can always go there and ask questions. Social Security is a federal agency, so it's federal law, and pretty much throughout the whole country, the claims process is pretty much the same, and it's the same rules and process. So I can help you in every state. I focus in on certain states, but the gist of it is it's pretty much the same process. You use ssa.gov. It's one website. You put in the information in one set of forms, and in some states there's just a little bit of a different review process, but ultimately you get reviewed once to see if you're disabled by a team. You get reviewed in most states a second time, and then if the second time you're denied, you go and ask for a hearing before the administrative law judge. And that's a live hearing for 1 hour, nothing to be scared of, but it's your opportunity for 1 hour to present your medical evidence, explain your situation, and have witnesses with a live judge or a judge by video to explain that you can't work on a sustained gainful basis in a competitive work environment, which basically means you can't work full time. And the big thing I want everyone to know, if you are 55 or nearing 55, this is a good time to meet with Josh and meet with a lawyer, because at age 55, we put up here, this is real big, the rules change in Social Security. And the big factor is, of the 5 factors that they look at typically, every claim, they look at your age, number 1. They look at your education, number 2. They look at what kind of impairments you have and what kind of sickness and what limitations you have. Then they look at what you've done, your past relevant work, the last 15 years. And then they also look at what jobs that you could do in that relevant work. And so when you turn 55, the only big question vocationally they're wondering about is, with all your conditions, with all your limitations, can you do your past relevant work? So if your doctor knows your job and knows what you've done over the last 15 years, and say you've only done the same job for the last 15 years, and say you're a delivery driver for FedEx, and you can't, because it requires you to lift 70 pounds and be on the road all the time and stand a lot, and with all your health conditions, there's no way you can drive anymore. Then if you can't do that job any longer, you'd be disabled at age 55. You wouldn't have to show. There's other jobs you could use, like be the scanner at the warehouse, or be the guy who works the gate at FedEx distribution center. All those jobs you might have done as you rose up the ladder, you don't have to knock those jobs out. You have to just knock the jobs out that you've actually done, not other jobs that would possibly you could do, that you could, like unskilled jobs that you might be able to transfer over and do that you've never done. So it's a big deal. So it's a time to talk and plan. So you're saying, okay, what do I do in terms of planning? Well, first you need to go to Social Security or go online or order your statement and find out how much, if you were disabled, you're going to get. So you can give the number to Josh and say, if I'm disabled today, I'm going to get $1,900 a month. And then he can start looking at the different planning decisions you need to make, because if you win, then you know that you can count on that money, and then each year there will be a slight increase for the cost of living. So at that point, you're locked in until till the day you part this earth. So part of what you also need to know is, as a disabled parent, a spouse, a husband situation, a wife, if you're applying and you have children that are are dependents and under 18 or 19, they will also get a check if you're found disabled. So there will be money. And I just won a case for a young man who was like 40 some years old, but he had arthritis so badly, and he had a college education, had been a superintendent of a major construction company, and he was, a big player in the construction industry, but his hands would not work. He couldn't hold things because they were so swollen all the time, and then the pain and the other complications from his arthritis kept him from being able to focus. So he won. But not only did he win, he has 2 children. They get disability benefits for the years that he was disabled, and then going forward. So I think their disability amount was $200 or $300 a month. So that gives them money to save for college. That gives them money for spending for things that they need for schooling at the moment. So there's a lot of good reasons to consult an attorney, because the combination of those, the money for the dependents, the money for you, might be workable for you. Now, as a lawyer, I don't really look or consider your financial status, what you need to pay the bills. I look at whether you meet the legal definition of disability. But there is a piece, and I can see there is a piece where maybe you've built rapport, and you've worked hard at the same factory for 20 years, and they're willing to work with you for 6 months and let you hang in there so that you can get to age 55. I would encourage you, not as so much legal advice, I would say for financial reasons, talk to Josh, but if you can wait, the rules change, it makes it easier for you to win. It's a win-win, which means you'll have insurance coverage while you're working, hopefully. You'll have a check coming in, and then ultimately you'll have time to see all the doctors and get the necessary medical testing, and this is key, the objective medical testing and proof to show that it's just not you describing your pain or you telling people and the doctors that you have limitations or that you're sick or you're ill. It's actually, there's objective tests and findings that actually back you up. And there's a Social Security law that basically looks at the combination of objective and what could be possibly coming from an objective problem, like vertebrae that are fractured or a spine that has disc disease. So that would make sense that there's spine pain and there's pain walking. All those two things together do come into play for them to award you benefits and for you to get your disability benefits. So the big three things that I want people to remember is when you've worked it your whole life and you've paid in, and the rule is 5 years out of 10, you're insured. It's your money, you paid in, and as long as you can prove you're disabled within the insurance period, and there's a date they give you if you call the Social Security office, it's called the last insured date. Whatever that date is, as long as you're sick and can't work before that date, you can apply, and as long as you can prove you're disabled by that date, you're going to get monthly benefits. And then 29 months after you prove your disability and you have a date, Medicare triggers, and you'll have protection through A and B, and if you buy D. Or you actually don't have to buy any of them, but you'll have the right to get Medicare, which can be big because most of the time once you stop working, your health insurance doesn't continue. So for you would be protected for health benefits and health insurance and medical expenses through Medicare. So for financial planning, Josh will tell you, people, that's one of the big things. They're worried. If I get sick, am I going to lose it all trying to pay my bills? And so part of the Social Security piece is Medicare goes with Social Security. And so that's important to talk about. When does it kick in? What does it cover? Thank goodness Medicare covers most things. But there is a piece when it covers you. There's a gap in there where the time you're disabled and you stop working until the time it actually covers things. So a lot of people will do a COBRA program where they'll keep buying the insurance at the rate that their company was buying it for. There's certain legal things that you're entitled to do. If you execute the rights that you've been given through the law, you can actually cover yourself during that gap time. You can buy gap insurance. You could go onto your spouse's plan. You could sign up for Obamacare or your own private health and care, so you could actually cover that gap. And I'm sure that's something Josh will talk about. That's part of, as you think, and he's explained to me, and I've been reminded, you're working, you're saving, you're in the business of income and growing your nest egg for retirement. And then once you move towards retirement, you think about, how do I keep the income coming in so that I can keep what I've worked hard for and also be able to take care of the things that are coming in the future. So I think it's really big that you do talk to a financial planner, and he'll tell you that this question about what do I do with Social Security disability comes up. And so I want him just to comment kind of, I'm sure that a lot of you have been in that same circumstances, that you're not alone, and he's going to tell you about some of the calls he gets, comments he gets.
Yeah, Skip, I get lots. It seems like a lot of folks, they just been working hard, and then but their backs are worn. It actually bothers me when people think they're trying to shirk their system or something like that, because we pay into the system. I mean, this thing with Social Security, with thing with disability, it's not free money. You don't just show up and they say, here's a bunch of free money. These are the taxes we've been paying. And I look at people who are, I met Skip in the Shenandoah Valley, Harrisonburg, Virginia. You got salt of the earth people. None of these people are welfare cheats or anything like that, but some people get sick. Some people get hurt. And I get these almost like they feel bad. Some of the folks who comment on the YouTube channels, like, I don't want to be on the dole. Mm-hmm. You're not on the dole. I mean, I just don't think that. Now, are there people who take advantage of the system? Absolutely. Yeah, and should those people be ashamed of themselves? Sure. But who are we to judge? I don't know what their circumstance is, but I do know the people that I talk to who are, let's just say they're working in construction, and maybe they fell off in a roofer. But it doesn't have to be like that. It could be someone in front of a computer all day with carpal tunnel, the whole thing. And look, we can challenge whether or not those people are hurt or not. I frankly don't care. I do know, though, if they feel that they can't work and they've been working for 30 years and they're like, I don't think I have the capacity to do another 10 before I hit my full retirement age. Because remember, 55 years old, you still got 11 years before your full retirement age. And that's when you get your full Social Security benefit. So they're sitting there thinking, I'm just going to take it at 62. And what we know that means is they're going to reduce it by 25% if their FRA is 66, or it's going to be reduced by 32% if their FRA is at 67. And so I'm sitting there thinking, so you're going to slave away at some crappy old job that you're in pain to do in order to wait till you're 62 to get Social Security, and it's going to be reduced by 25 or 32% depending on what your full retirement age is. That's not good. And you shouldn't do that to yourself just because you're worried that you might feel like you're on the dole, because you're not. Now, at the end of the day, I don't know the specifics. That's what Skip does, how that works. I don't know. Can you go do a job on YouTube? Can you go work? I don't know. I don't know. That's what you have to talk to someone, because I frankly have no idea. What I do know about the Social Security Administration and the IRS, if you're relying on them for advice, I would suggest you don't do that. Not that they're bad people, but it's a cattle herd. They're shuffling people in, they're shuffling people out. And the folks at the Social Security Administration, they do the best they can with the limited options that they have and the time constraints that they have. This is you. This is not a statistic. This is you. This is your information, your life at stake. And we can look all day long at the actuary tables and say, well, if 100,000 people, 10 are, stealing from Social Security and whatnot. That's not you. That's just actuarial tables. You're already going to have 10% of the population who's losers. But what I just say, and I'll get off my soapbox here. If you're approaching 55 years old and you feel you can't do this anymore, and you say, man, my only options is just be miserable until I'm 62, or I can get 18, or I can get $1,200 a month of Social Security, there might be a different alternative for you. All right. Now, it's not like you're going to show up and they're going to start giving you checks. They're going to, Skip and I were talking about, Social Security has kind of restricted some of their ability to approve benefits. Right. You want to talk about that real quick? Or?
Sure. It has definitely gotten more, scrutinized in the process. They're definitely carefully looking at medical records and their proof more than they've ever have. Partly because, one, they were a little nervous, I think, at a point that they thought maybe there might not be enough money in maybe 20 years from now. So I think in the last 4 or 5 years, it's definitely gotten more and more difficult to win disability benefits. So I think in terms of meeting with me and also meeting with Josh, with me, one of the focuses is how strong is the medical evidence? And that's mainly what I'm going to help you think through, which is you really need doctors writing down specifically, your ability to sit and stand and how many breaks you need and how much can you lift and can you look up and how's your attention and concentration. And we use these forms. They're residual functional capacity forms. They're 5 or 6 pages, but they're very detailed on what are your limitations. And then we look at that and we look at there's some regulation and rules that we kind of look at and we say, okay, is this person disabled? And after 55, it does get easier. But I would say if you're able to work full time, you're most likely in any capacity, any kind of job, they're probably not going to find you disabled. Now, if you get to the point where because you're senior status and you're calling in 4 days a month and you're calling in sick a lot and you're using up sick time, you're probably coming to the end of your employment at some point, because they're only going to allow you to go so long being unreliable and being sick. So that's the time you talk to a lawyer and a financial planner, because it's like the saying, the writing's on the wall. So now you need to get the medical evidence. So it's a seamless process where here's the bad news. Even if you win disability and get all your paperwork filed initially, and they review it and grant you disability within 3 or 4 months of planning or applying, and it could be up to 5 months sometimes, you don't get any money the first 5 months. So you automatically have a gap of no income for 5 months. And so you can't straddle that fence and work and go for disability. You have to not work. I mean, in terms of it could be maybe 10 minutes, 20, minor, a little bit of work here and there. But I mean, you can't be at your employment working, actively working. Now, you could have them pay out your vacation benefits to tide you over, and they could pay out your sick benefits to tide you over, but that's not actively working using your mental and your physical capacities to perform jobs that produce income. So you're fine there. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is when you win disability and you are sick, there's nothing that prevents you from working a little bit, and they call it episodic type work. And the rule, at least last year, was I think $1,160 per month. For the most part, if the income doesn't get up to that amount, and each year is a different amount, like it was $1,130 I think in 2016, and then it keeps going up if it doesn't go over that threshold, it kind of, the red flags don't go off in the system. So if every month or so you work one day for 4 hours and you make $400 or something like that, that won't disqualify for disability. They're looking for steady, sustained work at a competitive environment at a level of that 1,060 or 1,160. So for the most part, it doesn't mean you can't, we call it piddle, and make a little income here and there, sell some crafts here and there. It's active work. But the good news is, when you talk to financial planner Josh, is money that's passive money, interest money, money from investments, money from a rental property where you're actually not doing the repairs, you're just getting the rent and depositing it. That income does not count against your Social Security disability. So you can do that. So that's where the planning comes in, which is you're sick, you can't work full time. I help you win the monthly benefits. But then the rest of that is Josh saying, okay, well, maybe we move money around different categories to create income, and that income is passive and it's not going to count against you, but it is going to help you pay bills, because maybe the $1,300 a month, because you didn't work, you didn't make a lot of money, isn't going to cover it. But you have maybe 2 rental properties that will help you make it. So thinking through the big picture is why I say you need to, after you win disability through me or some other lawyer, you need to talk to Josh, because you have more of a financial planning question that you're asking, not a legal question.
So like going back to what we're talking, I remember I called you on that. A guy, he could, if his dividends are paying 5%, let's just say, that doesn't affect his Social Security, his disability. That's actually a pretty big deal, because we're using an example like he inherited $100,000 or something. I can't remember what it was, but he's receiving enough money from the dividends while he was waiting, because that's what it was. The guy so when you file, 5 months go by before you're granted any money.
Right.
So you have 5 months, you have no income coming in, because you can't work while you're waiting for your claim to go through.
Plus, they don't pay you. They just lock that money up and they don't give it to you. For some reason, you forfeit the first 5 months.
So, I mean, you're going to have to make do somehow.
Right.
Anyway, so there's a lot going on here, and I'm just telling you, financial planners don't know this stuff. And I'm speaking on behalf of all financial planners, because I am one, quite experienced and quite educated, and I frankly had no clue. And the thing with the dividends I thought was very interesting, because Skip and I were talking about that. I remember I was driving from going to a continuing care retirement community on behalf of a client, and I had this thought in my head about disability, and if you have dividend income, it doesn't hurt you, which is good, because you're not going to have any money for those first 5 months. And let me just say real quick too, we're not talking hundreds of thousands of dollars here, my friends. I mean, the max, I don't know what it is, maybe $2,500 a month. I don't know what. I mean, that's $30,000 a year. I mean, that you're not living large on $30,000 a year. I know some people could, that's true, but if you're in, I don't know, Washington D.C. area or something like that, $30,000 a year is that's not, you're not living high on the hog. That's for sure. Let me just ask you a question. How about divorced? I seem like a lot of divorced women, I guess divorcees with disability. Is there anything they're thinking about? Like, can they get a check off their ex-husband's record, or they can? Okay,
right. So that we'll do another segment on that. But in general, you if you're married for so many years, and I think the number is 10, you have the right to go off your husband's Social Security earnings record, which means whatever he paid in. And so that could be a bonus if you are widow and you don't have the support, or you don't have a lot of money. That's going to help you in terms of if you're needing income and you're sick or disabled, but also too, this idea of you paying in your own record. Now, a lot of times, if you didn't work for several years, you're not going to be insured. So there's possibilities for Medicare, but the bottom line is monthly money you haven't paid in, you're not insured, so you can't get any money out. Now, there's another program called SSI, and SSI is Supplemental Social Security Income. And that basically is very income sensitive, and that is basically a poverty-based disability program where you have to show you have limited assets, limited income. So, for example, if you're divorced and you get not much money in the divorce and you have one house, one car, and you cannot work, and you didn't pay in, you still are eligible for applying for SSI. So supplemental Social Security Income. So that would give you $754 a month. So that would give you something. And as long as you have assets in exempt categories, one house, one car, and not more than $2,000 in your checking account or any kind of savings in terms of
even like a stock account or something like that.
Yeah. So any savings. So for that case, you would have to move around financially with Josh. We talk about where could you move the money so that it wouldn't penalize you. So to get the $754, you'd have to do a lot, or you'd have to take other assets and put it into what he's an income producing vehicles so that you would have money to live off of. But here's the big thing is that if you didn't pay in, then you're vulnerable in terms of no health insurance. Medicaid or Medicare is not available to you unless you win SSI or disability benefit. So the biggest thing you need to think about, and we talked about this in the video, is if you're having marital difficulties, I'm pro-marriage, but if you can't work it out and there's going to be a divorce, you need to make plans for health insurance, because if you don't have a lot of income, a lot of money, and it's tied up in retirement or an IRA, and you can't get to it for health insurance, you're going to really have some issues taking care of yourself if you become ill.
Yeah, no, I could not agree with that more. I just want to point out on SSI, $754 a month. No one's living large on $754 a month. It's just not happening. And so we don't want you to go down that road. That's for sure. That's destitute. I mean, you're talking about destitute. And we'll wrap this up. But I just real quick, if the marriage is going south, and Skip and I are both advocates of living, trying your best to make it work. Absolutely. You just gotta, and especially you women out there, I'm just telling you, you better make sure you have a plan for health insurance. That could be a huge issue for you if you're like mid-50s or something like that, and all of a sudden you have no health insurance through your husband's employer. That's a big deal, and you need to make a stink about that in the proceedings, the divorce proceedings, because you cannot be, if you haven't worked, you haven't paid into it, you don't get Medicare, right? I mean, or Medicaid, I guess you could if you got nothing else, but you're not getting Medicare if you don't pay into it. And so what are you going to do? I mean, it's not good. So make sure you make that part of the divorce proceedings. All right, we're going way down a tangent here. So to wrap this up, we're going to do a couple more videos tomorrow on a Saturday, talk about long-term disability. And then we had a couple other things we're going to talk about off the top of my head. I can't remember. It's getting late here. I'm telling you, I'm an old man now, 48. We just lost ping pong to my two boys. The old men played my two boys, and we beat them once and they beat us once. But it's all good. But when you're old men at 9:30, you're like, oh, I'm dragging. So don't forget to subscribe. Like I said, when Skip gets his YouTube video channel up and running, he's got some content out there. I'll link to it as well. But go to skiprichielawfirm.com. Yeah.
And
SkipRichieLaw.com.
So we ask people to make comments.
Yes.
Really, if you're out there and you watch this and you're 55 and you're not feeling well and you're going back and forth in your mind, feel free to call me or Josh, because there's certain things that I can ask you to ask your doctor, and it'll give you an idea. For example, if your doctor says to you, I see you're trying hard, but it's time to really think about applying for disability, that's one of the key questions I ask people, that you at least have your doctor supporting you. And I would say it's probably not the lawyer that wins disability. Most of the time it's the doctor that's working with the lawyer.
Yep. Right on, guys. So we appreciate your time. Comments down below as always. Subscribe. Comments help. Thumbs up help. And don't forget to go to my website, heritagewealthplanning.com, skiprichielaw.com, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.